Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Maine Voices Live. I'm Lisa DeSisto. I'm the publisher of the Portland Press-Herald. And we are excited that you're all here tonight because on the Maine Voices Live stage, we have had comedians, authors, diplomats, poets, but tonight we have our first professional athlete with Ryan Flaherty here tonight. And as we always do at Maine Voices Live, first I'd like to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank the Press Hotel for providing accommodations for our guests throughout the series, and also Hub Furniture, who provides us with this lovely stage set. We're probably going to ask Ryan if he could sign one of the chairs, maybe, and auction it off later in the season. I also would like to welcome Portland Downtown as a new sponsor of our series. Casey Gilbert, the executive director, is here, and you should have got a little welcome lollipop and information about all the great work that they do to make Portland Downtown a vibrant place for residents, businesses, and tourists alike. They put on great programs, including the Summer Cadet program that helps people find their way, and also the Merry Madness and Monument Square tree lighting. So great work done by a small group of staff and a tremendously engaged board. So thank you to Portland Downtown. I would also like to welcome Mac Page as a new sponsor to the series. They are one of Maine's largest accounting firms, providing both traditional and integrated accounting solutions for clients across the state. Ralph Hendricks is here. I think Ralph knows everyone in the room. And if you're the one person that doesn't know Ralph, make sure you say hello and thank them for their sponsorship of this event, but also all the other community work that they do throughout Greater Portland. So thank you to Ralph and Mac Page. And finally, I'd like to welcome back H.M. Payson as our series presenting sponsor. Tim Griffin from H.M. Payson should be here. Maybe he's still at the pre-event reception, I'm not sure. But for more than 160 years, H.M. Payson has really been providing great services to Greater Portland, and they support this event and other arts-related series just to engage people in having a dialogue about what's happening in our community. So we're very thankful for H.M. Payson's ongoing support of Maine Voices Live. And now it is time to introduce our starting lineup. So it's been a busy off-season for Ryan Flaherty, the Orioles utility infielder. He got married in December, and that's right. His wife, Ashley, is here. I had the pleasure of meeting her, and she grew up in Florida, so apparently she's made several trips to LL Bean, and she is expertly outfitted now for all of the seasons. So congratulations to Ashley and to Ryan. And in just a few short weeks, he heads to Florida to start spring training, believe it or not. So people are excited about it, yes. So we are so happy that he could fit us into his schedule. He made his name as a scrappy and smart utility infielder, and last year he stretched his utility role playing every infield position, left and right field, and he also made his debut as a major league pitcher. He graduated from Deering High School in 2005. Now that's going to get a round of applause, isn't it? And was the first-round pick of the Chicago Cubs in the 2008 amateur draft. He made his major league debut with the Baltimore Orioles in 2012, and we will forgive him for this, but he is known as a nemesis of the Boston Red Sox because when he plays at Fenway, he bats .326. So a little known fact about Ryan is that the Press-Herald's circulation manager, Andrew Wood, faced Ryan in a Little League playoff game when they were both 12 years old. Apparently, Andrew got a game-winning home run off of Ryan, but that didn't deter Ryan from going on to a very successful career as a ball player. So I'm quite sure Ryan doesn't remember that particular game, but I can tell you Andrew will tell you every single detail about it every day. So there you go. There's a little local trivia on that. And interviewing Ryan tonight is our own utility player, Glenn Jordan, our sports reporter, who joined the Press-Herald staff in 1994 from the Hartford Courant. He came here to cover a newly formed baseball team, the Portland Sea Dogs, and covered them for 8 seasons. Now, Glenn's gone on to cover every sport for the Press Herald, from high school sports to road races to biathlon. Oh, yes. And alpine too. Now, another fact about Glenn Jordan that few people don't know is that his baseball career actually wrapped up when he was a junior in high school at the South Burlington, Vermont high school, where he did play every position before he retired, before his senior year, apparently. Glenn is also an excellent speller, and I welcome to the stage Ryan Flaherty and Glenn Jordan.
Welcome. I actually didn't play every position in high school. It was mostly Little League that I played. And then when I was a junior, I got DH'd for, and I switched to tennis. I saw the handwriting on the wall. So, and I do apologize. I know many of you here are probably here to see Kevin Thomas. He was on the program, and he covers the Sea Dogs now, and he is here, but he has pneumonia. And I'm not going to ask you to spell that. Okay, so
No spelling.
But I will ask you, she mentioned spelling because we had a corporate spelling bee last spring. I think we're going to have another one this year, and I was the host. I got to be the pronouncer. So I do have a spelling word for you to lead off. And Ryan, your word is versatility. As in, versatility is a noun. It means the ability to adapt or be adapted to many different functions or activities, as in, by playing 7... Whoa. Jock Bailey never has these problems. By playing 7 different positions last season for the Baltimore Orioles, Ryan showed his versatility.
Versatility. V-E-R-S-A-L-I-T-Y.
Sorry, Ryan. We missed a... versatility is V-E-R-S-A-T-I-L-I-T-Y. We've skipped a follow, but that's okay. That was just the practice round. You're still in. So I just wanted to get updated on sort of recent events now. You married last month to Ashley. Ashley is here.
Yep, Ashley's here in the front row, and we've made it a month, so going strong.
Congratulations. Now, how did you meet?
So we met through a teammate of mine. He used to play right field for us, and it was about my 3rd year being with the Orioles. And my locker was next to his, and an unwritten rule in baseball as a younger player, you stay out of the veteran player's way. It happened to be this guy. His name's Nick Markakis. He didn't speak. So for about 2 years into it, I thought he hated me, but it just happened to be Nick's way. And after about 2.5 years into it, one of my other players, I think, was trying to set me up on a date on a West Coast trip, and Nick turned around in the middle of it and said, "Hey, I got a girl for you." And I'm like, "Wow, you speak." And he said to look her up on the face page or something like that. He didn't know what Facebook was, but next thing you know, we're married, so...
And it was exciting to see that apparently your names rhyme too, because it's Ash and Flash, which a lot of people, I don't know if everyone knew this, but I didn't realize your nickname was Flash, and it started pretty early, right? Flash Flaherty?
Yeah, it's definitely not because I'm fast. And I had a middle school coach who I think people used to call me Flats from Flaherty, and somehow it's stuck, and every place I've gone, they've always just called it to me, and here I am at 30, and they still call me Flash. So.
Now, this off season, I guess you recently bought a house in Falmouth, and you're living there. How do you keep sharp? How do you, hitting a baseball is traveling 100 miles an hour or so is not something that you can just roll out of bed and do, I'm guessing, after taking a month or two off.
Shovel a lot of snow. But no, there's a facility here I work out at. I do that. You just, we split our time. We were down in Florida for a month. We're up here for a month. We go back down to Florida. And you make do. You go to indoor facilities, kind of like I did growing up. You just, you deal with it, and it is what it is, and it's cold, and it's nasty, and it's rainy, but we all live here, so here we are.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think you're the second position player from Maine ever to play in the major leagues. Does that sound right? Does anybody dispute that?
I know there is one other guy. I'm not sure past that. There's a lot of pitchers.
Okay.
I know that. Yeah.
But Mike Bordick, who I think grew up in Winterport, originally from Michigan, maybe what we claim him as a Mainer. Have you ever crossed paths with him? Any idea where he is these days?
Yeah. Mike is a color commentator with the Orioles in Masson, and he's really been a close mentor of mine ever since coming to Baltimore. Being a Maine guy, he's always someone I talk to a lot. And I remember my dad got me an autographed card of his when I was in elementary school, and I had it hanging up in my room. So when he was with the A's, so he's been a close mentor for sure.
And his broadcast partner on the Orioles TV broadcasts is
Gary Thorne,
who's from Old Town or something, or is he from Portland? Or where
I'm pretty sure he's a Portland guy.
So you're in Baltimore as like the only Mainer one of the only Mainers in baseball, and the two guys commentating on your daily performance are two guys from Maine.
Yeah, so they drop a lot of wickeds on the commentary. And even when you're hitting 200, they're still saying good things about you. So they like their Maine guys for sure.
Very good. Now, growing up on your street it's Regan Street?
Regan Lane.
Regan Lane. And you have a brother, Regan?
Brother Regan, over here in the front,
okay.
Yeah.
And I guess your parents were very creative in that, thinking, well, Regan, okay, we can call him that. But there's someone else in professional sports from that street, is that right?
Yes, Josh Longstaff grew up my street. He's a coach with the Knicks now, so two of us going strong.
Do you, when you're in New York, do you ever cross paths, or he was in Oklahoma City or something?
Yeah,
wasn't he?
no, we crossed paths in New York, and he was one of the kids I grew up with. There was about probably 15 of us, ranged in age, and we played every day after school. My dad would always play baseball with us, and we just played pickup every single day after school from 2 till it got dark, and yeah.
So, doesn't every major leaguer have to have specialized since they were like in 3rd grade and shunned all other sports and focused entirely, because that's the only way that you can continue on is to focus on one sport?
Yeah, I mean, in today's society, I think you see a lot of kids and parents that try to push their kids to the one sport athlete. There's AAU going year-round. There's travel leagues in baseball going year-round. Everything's year-round. So therefore, the multi-sport athlete has really been weeded out of today's game. And it's kind of sad because, I think if you ask a lot of college or professional coaches, their first answer when they're recruiting is saying, give me the kid who's played 3 sports. That's the guy I want on my team. And growing up as a kid, baseball was obviously one of my favorite sports, but football was big, basketball was big, and whatever season was in, that's what I wanted to be playing. If it was the fall, it was time for football. If it was the winter, it was time for basketball. And I wanted to be where Friday night the crowd was at the football game watching the football game, so I wanted to play, and I didn't want to be stuck inside some batting cage hitting 100 balls off a tee. I wanted to be out playing and competing.
And you won a football championship, state championship at Deering High. You basketball, did well. You won 2 baseball state championships. But,
Yeah, I don't. No winning seasons when I was at Deering. No,
but
not for
you
basketball.
played hockey too, right?
Yeah, I played hockey up until high school, and then that ended. But I'm actually in a men's league over in Casco Bay Sports right now in the off season on Wednesday night. So
All right. So you throw right, you hit left. What do you with skating?
I shoot left-handed in
left-handed.
hockey. Yeah,
Okay. So you're left wing.
left. Yep.
Okay. All right. Pass first.
Shoot first, always.
Shoot first. Okay. Was that your same as
That's
a point
my
guard?
motto.
Now, growing up in Maine, there are snow days when every school kid hopes for them, prays for them. My kids put a spoon under the pillow and put something under their bed. I don't know, but you had some special, not superstitions, but you would look forward to snow days. Is that right?
Yeah, me, my brother, my sister, we had a dad who's a baseball coach at USM still, and all our snow days in the wintertime, weekends, he would drag us up there, and there we were every snow day. It's amazing he still has a job dragging around 3 kids, but we went up every school day, snow day, and we would play all day. We played every sport. We played every, my sister did, she'd be jumping on the gymnastic beams while me and my brother were playing, floor hockey, basketball, and, really a lot of the athleticism I learned was from those days.
Now, you still play video games, right? Even though you're, how old now? 30?
30.
30, okay. But you're pretty good at video games?
Yeah, I mean, my wife hasn't shut them down yet, so
All right.
if they're on for too long, she usually yells at me, but she gives me a good hour a day.
And now, you had special restrictions, though? Could you play unlimited video games as a kid? Or what
Well, now I can, but growing up, I had my mom. She ran the rules in the house, and we had rules. Hour of video games a day, not until nighttime and after schoolwork was completed. And that was kind of the day. We got home from school, we played outside, and after that we went to, we did our homework, we ate, and then me and my brother would, get in a fist fight over the video game, and that was basically the Flaherty household.
No. Let's see. You were 8 years old maybe when the Sea Dogs came into being, is that right? Or maybe you turned 8 that year, 94?
94, I was 8, yeah.
Okay. So you grew up with this team coming to town. Would you go to Hadlock Field a lot? Would you watch those early Sea Dog teams?
Yeah, we would go down there, and as a kid, as I'm sure a lot of the young kids here tonight, you'd go down for the game, you'd wait around, try to get the autograph, and from those teams, I've ended up seeing a lot of the old guys that I watched growing up, and so it's been cool.
Has there ever been a time where you've been playing short or second or something, and somebody pulls in with a double, and it's an old Sea Dog or something like that?
Yeah, it was 2012. I was a rookie, and there was a player named Mark Kotze who used to play here a long time ago. And he got on second base, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm from Portland. He's like, no kidding, and he started telling some stories about out in the Old Port or something. I don't know what it was, but he said it was his favorite place he played in the summertime. So, him, Kevin Millar was here and played against him. There's been a bunch of guys, Beckett, a lot of guys, but, it's kind of cool when you see a kid that, a guy that you grew up when I was a kid seeing play, the chance to play against them.
Now, you got to play at Hadlock Field in high school and Legion, I'm guessing, but professionally, I think you played 4 games in the Eastern League or something on rehab with Bo. You never got to play there as a professional, is that right?
Not as a professional, no, just high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first trip to Fenway Park as a kid?
Yeah, I think I was around 9 or so. My dad took me, my brother, and my grandfather down there. And like any kid, I think the first, you show up at Fenway and the first thing that everyone looks at is, you come in the stadium, you come up the stairs, and the first thing you see is the green monster, and every New England kid, dreams of, playing there someday.
Now, in the off season, the Red Sox have signed Chris Sale. They already have David Price. You're quite familiar with him. He was a college teammate. Drew Pomerantz, Eduardo Rodriguez. They're all left-handers. You're a left-handed hitter. I think what they're trying to do is somehow they've looked at the stats. It's a small sample size, and yet you're hitting .326. You hit better at Fenway Park than any other park in the major leagues. Why is that?
I leave a lot of tickets. It costs me a lot of money, so I figure I better get my money's worth when I'm in there hitting. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's my teammates always joke around. They say it's the accents I'm hearing again, and they come up with everything. But, I think it's nice every time you get a chance to come home and play in front of, people, play in an area, in a stadium that I grew up. The only Major League stadium I'd ever been to until I played in the big leagues was Fenway. So that was pretty cool. And, it's just, I have no reason. I think my manager's asked me that before, and I haven't been able to give him an answer either.
Well, didn't he say something to the press after? I think one of your first starts was there, right? And you played left field and right in front of the monster, and
yeah,
and you had a couple hits and had a good game, and
yeah. So my rookie year, I'd come on and hadn't really played much. I was kind of a Rule 5 guy, sit in the bench. I'd go into games late, and the first day we're in Fenway was my first time as a player ever being there, and. Here I am, I show up, and at like 3 o'clock they usually post the lineup. So, sure enough, I'm hitting leadoff, playing left field, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, I think Buck likes me. So, I played the game. I think I got a hit or something, whatever. And we get done the game. I'm meeting my friends after. And my friends pull up their phone and they're like, hey, look at this. So sure enough, it's a tweet or something, and a reporter had asked Buck why he played me, and he said, no way I can come to Fenway Park and not play the Irish kid, so from there, the rest is history.
Now, the Red Sox third base coach, Brian Butterfield, is another Mainer. Did he play with your dad at University of Maine? Was that the same?
Yeah, around that, geez, he looks a lot younger than my dad does, but maybe, I think his dad, I don't know.
Have you gotten to know those guys a little bit too, or is there much interaction between players and opposing team? It's not like Yankees and Red Sox fans, right? There's some professional courtesy and respect between.
Yeah, well, I feel as though if you're from Maine, there's only so many of us out there in the world running around, and we kind of look out for each other. So, every time we play Boston. Their whole team pretty much comes up to me. There's an ongoing joke that every time they're going over the scouting report, the Red Sox, they'll be going through the lineup, and every time they hit my name, Butterfield jumps up and yells, oh, good tough Maine kid right there. So I think their whole team's sick of me.
Now, another change this winter, there's a new collective bargaining agreement, and among the provisions, the All-Star game is no longer going to determine the World Series host team. And another thing, they're phasing out the rookie hazing thing, which makes sense. It's a part of our culture, and high school and college kids see this, and so they're not allowed to wear dresses. They'll have the rookies wear dresses or the Hello Kitty bubblegum backpacks or things like that. But I'm guessing that was, of course, before you had to go through, or that's been since you had to go through that as a rookie with the Orioles. And Rule 5 is a thing where you have to make the team. You come from another team. Maybe you can explain the Rule 5 a little bit, or just about your rookie year and what you went through as.
Yeah. So. As far as the rookie hazing, the unwritten rule in baseball, for you guys who don't know, is if you're a rookie, you're stuck carrying everything. You carry the bags, you carry the alcoholic beverages in the plane, and that. So for my rookie hazing, they stuck me in a naked jumpsuit, and it was on a flight from Baltimore all the way out to San Fran, which when you get out in San Fran, you actually fit in when you're wearing a naked suit. So they drop you off in the middle of the city, and you make your way back, and that's out of the game, and I see why it's out of the game, but it was all fun, you always see the funny photos if you follow baseball of the rookie hazing, which is kind of cool.
And you were the only rookie that year, but usually it's the last road trip of the season. Is that so? There were some September call-ups. So
there were some September call-ups. There was some
in
other,
the middle of San
no,
Francisco?
no, not alone. There was some other teammates there with me.
All right. Getting back to growing up a little bit, when you became aware, well, I'm guessing when you knew you were pretty good at baseball, you were either going to play for your dad at USM, or your dad's college teammate, good friend Jack Leggett, was the coach at Clemson University. And I'm guessing that was something that you were always planning on doing, maybe one or the other, and then it suddenly happened that you didn't do either.
Yeah, I guess originally as a kid, I always thought I was going to, go on and play at USM for my dad and, do that. And, as I got a little bit older, push those achievement goals a little higher, and I wanted to go, to Clemson. I always liked Clemson, and, perfect scenario, my dad's, college roommate was Jack Leggett, he's a coach at Clemson, so, if I'm good enough, I'm going to go play at Clemson. And, I kind of saw it that way, and then, I started to get a little bit better, and I thought it was all gravy, and I was going to go to Clemson and play. And sure enough, my junior year or something, I was at a showcase, and, Clemson really hadn't offered me a scholarship. And, I think Jack had talked to my dad and said, listen, Daddy, they had a freshman who was a freshman shortstop who was a grade ahead of me, and he said, we have this All-American, he's a freshman, but I tell you what, why don't you send him to Vanderbilt where Coach Corbin is. He was here for a long time, and, at the time, back in 2005 or 6, Vanderbilt wasn't on the map. I had never heard of him, and I'm like, I don't want to play there. Who is it, And went on a visit there with my dad, and they took me there, and kind of saw some things they were doing there and where they were going, and ended up making a decision to go there eventually.
And you became an All-America there. Some decent teammates. David Price was a teammate. Pedro Alvarez, who is now an Orioles teammate, was the same recruiting class. And you're close to getting your degree, right? Close,
yeah.
What was your major?
I did human organizational development. So for those who don't know, that's what the football players do there. So that's what I signed up for.
So now, how close are you? Is that something? Your dad's
I'm close.
It's
something I want to work towards. I got 3.5 years done. I got a half a semester left. So I know my coach really wants me to finish. My parents want me to finish. My wife now wants me to finish. I got a lot of people who want me to finish, so I'll do it at some point.
All right. And your coursework's done. You just need like an internship or something.
Internship, right? Yeah. So
Lisa, he's willing to work for no pay, so he's pretty good with sports. Just saying. Minor leagues, draft day, 2008, right? You found out if you were home, weren't you? Or
yep.
And now I'm guessing draft day is kind of an exciting time, but a really anxious time because you don't know where you're going or when you're going. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I was a senior in high school, and it kind of started to get a little bit of recognition, and scouted, and I thought maybe, there was a chance I may get drafted out of high school. So, as a kid, you're sitting there, you come home, you're checking the tracker thing online to see if I've been selected, and, sure enough, I'm sitting there, my dad's telling me, like, what the heck are you doing, Ryan? Like, go do something. You're not going to get drafted. And, draft day comes and goes, and, and I'm off to Vanderbilt. So, fast forward 3 years, I was a junior at this point. And it was draft day again, so anyone who has to go through that draft day, and you see it in football all the time, basketball, I wish that on no one. That's the worst day. It's the most exciting day, but it's the worst day because you have no control. You're just sitting there waiting. And fortunately for me, it ended up being a great day. My family was there. I was with my family. My grandfather was there, who I was extremely close with. And it was a special day, the day I got selected for sure.
So from Vanderbilt, from Nashville, you go to Boise, Idaho, to start your minor league career, and it's glamorous, right? The Northwest League, low A, bus trips to, I think the nearest team was 268 miles or something. Puts the Bangor-Portland trip in perspective, does it?
Yeah, so it was 2008. I had signed pretty quick, within a week. They sent me off to Boise, so, and then from there, just a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And for those you don't know, that's what they serve before games. The further you go up in the pecking order, AA, AAA, they give you better food. But at those levels, there, you look out for yourself, and you grind, and it's really, that's what you do, and you work your way up. And it was a long first year for sure, that first summer.
And this is in the Cubs organization. So the next year you go to Peoria, and you do well enough that they decide, well, let's skip them a level, because there's a low A and then there's a high A. So you skip the Florida State League and you go AA, thinking you're on the track, and what happens and you're back in Tennessee too, not far from Nashville, right?
Yeah. So my first professional full year, they sent me to low A. Went there, did fine, and they skipped me a level. So here you are as a prospect. You think you're on the fast track and all's gravy, and you come out my first year in AA, and a month into the year, I'm hitting .80, and sure enough, called into the manager's office, and they sent me down to high A, which is in the Florida State League at that time. So you're sitting down there, you're depressed, you're mad, you have every sort of emotion going on, but it's times like that you really, you decide, well, listen, you can sit there and pout about it, you can sit there and be mad about it, you can be mad at this guy, blame that guy, but at some point you got to look in the mirror and say, listen, I got to play better, and that's the bottom line. And all of those times you go through are learning experiences, which to make it to the major leagues, every guy you see, whether it's David Ortiz or Derek Jeter or anyone, there's a lot of struggle that goes into getting there.
And learning how to deal with failure. I mean, that's very much a lot.
Yeah, learning how to deal with failure is, probably, one of the hardest things you have to learn. As a kid that came from Maine, I went to Vanderbilt. You show up down there, and I'm from Maine, and everyone's like, "Who the heck is this kid from Maine at Vanderbilt?" It's a Division I school. It's in the SEC. And that first fall, I probably hit about 100. And the coach kept putting me out there at shortstop and basically told me, hey, listen, if you can catch the ball, I'll play you. And so, here you are, and you're facing David Price. You're facing, and the last guy I had faced, back here maybe threw 80 miles an hour. So, learning to deal with failure was definitely, it's a must in anything you do in life, but especially in baseball.
So then in 2011, I think it is, you're back in Tennessee, you're an all-star, you get, in July, you're promoted to AAA, you have a great year. I think you've got a spring training invite or something that year as well. And then that fall, Theo Epstein takes over the Cubs, and a guy I'm sure you held in high regard because your team, the Red Sox, won the World Series with him in charge.
Yeah, I liked Theo up until about November 2011. And he released me, so. No, I obviously always liked, him because of what he did in Boston. And, at that point, in 2011, I had moved back to Double-A, had a good year. And, like the minor leagues it's frustrating at times. You see other guys who get called up and you think it should be you. And that's where having my dad, I call home, yell at my dad and tell him how mad I am. And he's usually the guy who says, well, guess what, play better. So you're mad. And I went to AAA. And then that off season, they decided not to protect me on the 40-man roster. And you're kind of just sitting there thinking, now what, so.
So if you've played a certain number of years and you're not on the 40-man roster, you're eligible for this Rule 5. So the Orioles picked you up, and they drafted you to Rule 5, and the rule is if you take a player from another organization, you have to keep him on your Major League 25-man roster for the full year or send him back. So you had this opportunity to make the team, and yet you hadn't gone through full minor league development as many players do. What was that like with the Orioles, that first camp, kind of being the outsider but having this chance and not knowing what would happen?
So, with the Cubs always in spring training, there's always, most team has what's called the Rule 5 guy. It's a chance to make the team. And, I never really followed who's who in spring training. I would sit there in camp, and there was always a Rule 5 guy, and I'm like, this is a weird guy, has these weird rules for him. And, next thing you know, you're the Rule 5 guy with the Orioles. So, you go from the low of the low, you get non-protected in November, and here you are in December with a chance going into spring training to make the team. But with that being said, it's basically you make the team or you get sent back. So I got selected and went. I showed up at my first mini camp at Camden Yards. It was in January. And I was there, and I was, kind of nervous, and Buck called me in the office, and I'm thinking, well, this is pretty cool. It's Buck Showalter, I got a chance to meet him, and he sits there and told me that playing in the American League East was like playing in the SEC in football, so I better be ready. And I said, all right, well, that's cool, and off I went to spring training.
And then the last few days of spring training, you look around, you can do the math a little bit. How did you learn that you had made the team, that you were going to the majors for the first time?
So I went to camp that year, and, I had a pretty good camp, but I didn't know, you don't know if you're going to make the team. You don't know if, whatever. There's always, you don't know what they're thinking. And that's one of the main struggles in baseball is you can think what you want, and even at that level, but the truth of the matter is it isn't up to you at the end of the day, so you can't control that. But, you can play, everyone will tell you in baseball, you can figure it out. You're looking around the room, you can see, you can see the numbers. And around like one of the last few days of camp, Buck held a team meeting and was going over some of the ground rules for the season, the rules and whatnot. And at the end, he kind of talked about how the hardest part of his job was to always call a player in the office and tell him he'd been sent down or released. But that being said, the most rewarding was telling a guy for the first time he had made the major leagues, and he told me there that I had made it.
In front of the whole team?
In front of the whole team, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So,
and there was a big group hug.
Yeah, it was 25 guys. Yeah.
Are you required to know Buck's real name? Does anyone know his real name?
Everyone. William or Nathan? I don't know which one. It's William, Nathan, William.
It's William Nathaniel.
William Nathaniel. That's
very good. Very good. All right.
He's just Buck to me.
Okay. Your first appearance in a game wasn't opening day. What do you? That's got to be seared in your mind, right?
Yeah. So, you get to the big leagues, and here you are. It's great, and I made the team, and about the third game we were killing the Minnesota Twins about 20-1 or 12-1. So I figured, Buck didn't think I could screw up that game, so he put me in there at third. And like the first player hit a ground ball to me. That's the way it always works for you guys who don't know. If you go in the game late in the game, the first ball's coming to you. And sure enough, first grounder was hit to me, and I made the play.
Now, I don't know if any of you saw the promos in the paper. If you see this photo, it's a little bigger in the paper, but it shows Ryan's grip. And I'm sure, Ed, you saw this. You're with the seams there. Your grip is not across the seams. Was that a bunt? Was that what's going on there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just winging it.
Okay. All right. Just don't show that to Buck.
Right.
Okay. Your first hit, momentous home run, double in the gap. What was your first major league hit?
So, well, he started me about the second week of the season. He gave me a start, and I struck out 3 times. So. I had been about 0 for 9, and it was late in the game. We were playing the Blue Jays, and he put the sacrifice bunt on. So I'm like, okay, I can bunt. I feel pretty good. And I put a sacrifice bunt down, and next thing you know, no one fields it. And here you are at first base, and first major league hit's a bunt.
All right.
So. I think my uncle gave it to me as it's framed, so it's got me squared around bunting for my first major league hit. It wasn't the way I drew it up.
You got that ball still, though, right?
I got the ball, yeah.
Okay. All right. May 10th of that year, you get the start. You're batting leadoff against Colby Lewis. You remember anything about that game?
So that was my first home run. And it was actually pretty cool because they went back to back to start the game we did. So that was a pretty cool feat to do that.
So you and then J.J. Hardy and Nick Markakis?
Yeah.
And were you there at that point, Ashley? No, you're not there. Your sister?
Yes.
Probably, okay. Because right, her sister is married to Nick.
I didn't know Ashley at that time. No,
okay.
I didn't know.
All right. How about your first Grand Slam? You have some memories of that? Because I think that's your one home run against the Red Sox?
Is it? I don't even know.
Well, that was in the baseball reference. So
well, if it's in there, it counts.
It counts, okay. This August, you got to pitch for the first time since when? Since
high school.
And first batter, what happens?
Yeah, so...
Well, first of all, you're playing third base in the 8th inning or something, right?
Yeah, so we were getting killed. And you, like I always say in baseball, if you're smart and you've been around, you can figure out what's going on. And you see the bullpen guys, and they couldn't get anybody out. And we're getting crushed 18-1 or something. The game's been 4.5 hours. So I go in for defense. I'm going in to play for the third baseman, and I'm in there, and okay. And next thing you know, the pitcher's getting hit. So you're kind of in the back of your mind, you're thinking, all right, I might get a chance to pitch. So the inning ends, I come in there. I'm sitting there at the end of the bench, and I get a nudge on my shoulder from the manager. He looks at me, and I knew what he was going to say before he said it. So I said, yeah, I can pitch. And he's like, all right, 2 things. Throw strikes, don't get hurt, and make it quick. 3 things. So off I went out there, and you get out there on the mound, and I hadn't pitched since high school, so you're throwing your warm-up pitches, and it's actually amazing when you get out there how small or how hard it is to hit the catcher's mitt. It looks easy, but like every pitch just goes high, like high, high, high. So it took some adjustments, but the first guy hit a homer. There was a couple of line drives. Not much over 84 miles an hour. But I made it through the inning.
Yeah. Did you go full windup, or did you go from the stretch?
He told me to make it quick, so I think I was going from the stretch,
okay.
Trying to make it quick.
All right. So the only 2 positions now that you haven't played in the major leagues are catcher and center field. But you have been an emergency catcher, right? So
yeah, they let me be the emergency catcher, and I'm not fast enough to play center field, so those are the 2 I haven't played.
But your speed is, you say you're not fast enough, but you've never been caught stealing. You are a perfect base stealer in your major league career.
I choose carefully when I'm going.
All right. All right, I want you to rank your positions now. I want your favorite positions, because you play many of them.
Yeah, they're all challenging in their own way. Yeah, obviously I played the most shortstop growing up. I was always a shortstop. Wanted to play shortstop. But as a coach's son, you got a coach who's sitting there and he says, "Well, learn them all." And I said, "Okay, yeah, screw you, Dad. I'm gonna play shortstop." But fortunately, I listened to him enough that I learned all of them. And to be honest with you, that's really, the only reason I, probably still have a job is, you can play them all, then you become valuable. If you can play one, you're not valuable. So, fortunately, I learned them all. And but to get back to your question, I would probably say first, second, or short, second, third are all even. First is a little bit challenging in its own way, and outfield's not as easy as people think either. That ball goes up there, and you get those decks of the stadium in major leagues, and when it gets above the stands, the wind circulates and pushes it, and it gets in those stadiums, and sometimes it doesn't look like the wind's blowing, but it hits the stadium and comes off, and you don't want to be the guy that ends up on not top 10 Sports Center with a drop catch. So and make sure you catch them.
Do you have a most embarrassing moment on the field?
I don't know about embarrassing. My first year, we were playing the Yankees in the playoffs, and I'm starting, and I'm like, this is great. You're out there, and next thing you know, you don't want to be the guy who screws up. And sure enough, 8th inning, pop-up goes up really high, and it's in between me, the center fielder, the shortstop, and I call it, but yet I think I hear someone else, and drop the ball. So you're sitting there, and you're like, oh gosh, this is it. And for you guys, young kids who play baseball, you could have a short memory in baseball. But funny story is that Buck comes out to make a pitching change with 2 outs in the 8th inning, and he comes out. We're meeting at the mound, and he's sitting there making the pitching change, and he looks at me right after I screwed up, and I'm nervous now at this point. And he says, "Well, you know what?" It's like, you could be on your couch in Maine, but here you are. So I think that that was kind of that was kind of good to hear that, and a little confidence.
All right, so the last question, I've asked you to rank the positions. Now I want you to rank, of these 3 things, I want you to put them in order of preference: Maryland crabs, Chesapeake oysters, and Maine lobster.
I might tell you a different answer wherever I am.
That's a wise man. There's a wise man.
Politician, too. No, I would say, I always joke around with the people in Maryland and say that crab's a poor man's lobster. So I like lobster. What was the second? You said oysters, right?
Chesapeake oysters?
Chesapeake oysters, that'd be 2. And then crab. Not a huge crab fan.
Not a crab fan?
Not
okay.
a huge crab fan. No.
All right. So I have a friend in Baltimore who teaches at Towson University who learned that I was going to do this, and he said, I've seen Ryan Flaherty. He's tall, and he goes to restaurants that I can afford. So he's very impressed. Nick's Fish House. Nick's Fish House is one of your. And do you have if anyone goes to Nick's, do you have a recommendation for them?
Well, we've been. Regan's been there with me, and Ashley's been there with me. I'm a big fish guy. I like seafood, so we eat a lot of seafood. Yep.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We'd like to open this up. If we have any questions from the audience, I think we have a microphone somewhere with a blue light attached to it. Yes?
Thank you. Ryan, could you describe your relationship with Buck Showalter? Because everything I read about you guys seems like you have a pretty good relationship. And just what is he like as a manager for you?
Me and his relationship is, it's good. You stay out of Buck's way and stay out of his way. He's and he'll like you. He's been good. He cares about his players a lot. He's not just like a lot of other managers. That I think he truly takes an interest in a player's personal life. And obviously what he's done on the field speaks for itself. But there's not a manager out there as far as game preparation who's better than him.
I just want you to know, Ryan, my daughter and I watch you play in Florida for the last 3 seasons. We'll be in Sarasota this year. And I just want everyone to know we think that you're the best utility infielder in the major leagues.
Thanks a lot.
It's a very observant man.
Yeah, right. I think this person up here is good. Yeah.
Front row.
What was your favorite baseball player growing up?
His question was, what was his favorite baseball player growing up?
My favorite player growing up was, I was a Red Sox fan. Obviously where we're from, you got no choice. But I always admired Derek Jeter as a player. I think, if you like baseball, you respect what he did, and the way he went about his business. And he was obviously a great player. So Derek Jeter is my favorite player.
Ripken Jr. is a legend in the Baltimore area. Does Ripken show up much? Do you have much relationship with him? Does he have a connection to the Orioles ongoing?
Yeah, he comes around quite a bit. Well, I shouldn't say quite a bit. Sometimes he comes around. He's a big guy, and being a tall infielder, I had the chance to kind of, ask him some questions in regards to that. And obviously, he's an icon in Baltimore and across baseball, so he comes around a decent amount. Yep.
What would you say to your... I can out loud. I'll
Yeah.
just-
All right.
What would you say to your 10 or 11-year-old self? Like my son.
Yeah. So the question she asked was, what would I say to my 10 or 11-year-old self? I think, I know this sounds cliche, but you have fun. You have fun, and it's. I think that's the question I probably get asked the most. Is people always say, well, how did you get to the major leagues coming from Maine? And I just played. I never looked at baseball as a job. I never looked at it like it was something I have to do. My father never pushed it on me. I just enjoyed to play. I just enjoyed playing and being outside and just whatever it was to do. And I think for kids, that's the most important. I mean, I see a lot of kids and a lot of parents who want their kid to do so well. It's almost as if they're living through the kid's dreams. And it's not about that. It's about a kid doing what he wants to do and finding his own passion. If it's in baseball, if it's in anything, if he wants to be a banker, if he wants to be a doctor, and so have fun and find your own passion, whatever it is. Yeah.
If we weren't playing baseball, what would your career choice be?
He asked if I wasn't playing baseball, what my career choice would be. I don't totally know that. Someday it'll come, and I haven't. It's probably something in baseball. I've been in baseball long enough. I came from a baseball family, and that's really, what I kind of know. So I don't know to what extent or what I would do, but yeah. Yeah.
There was some reference earlier to David Price and whatnot. So as a left-handed batter, who are the nastiest guys that you have to face? And please tell me it's Chris Sale and...
Well, fortunately for me, they don't put me in there when a left-hander's pitching, so I'm on the bench. But they got two of the better ones in the game, and those two. Andrew Miller's up there. What he did with Cleveland, he was a Red Sox for a while and a Yankee. Chapman, he's with the Yankees. He's obviously a good left-handed pitcher. Heck, there's a lot of them in the AL East. I know that. So we'll see.
I think one of Maine's largest Oriole fans, and for a long, long time. So I'm pretty sure Buck doesn't read the Press Herald. So could you tell me, if you were in the bottom of the 11th inning in an elimination game against a rival in the AL East, say a wild card game, would you leave your best pitcher in the bullpen? Actually, I won't make you answer that.
Yeah, well, I will, because I truly think, I was sitting there watching the game, and I'm sitting there watching it, and even to this day, I still, I think, he did the right thing. I mean, you watch the way he manages, and, he's a firm believer in, games on the road, and he's not going to use his closer till we have a lead, and then that's what got us there, and, you obviously, you see all the stuff that comes out, post-game and all that stuff, and, everyone's got an opinion. It's easy for everyone else to say, but, when you're the guy sitting there to make the call, it ain't always that easy. So to say it's just true to what he's always believed in his philosophy, that couldn't be more true. But everyone's got their own opinion, so.
Hi, Ryan. My name's Tim. I just want to thank you for all you give back to the community, especially when you come back here to Maine. To my son personally, you've always been very accommodating in answering any questions he's had about his baseball career, and any time we've been down to Fenway. But my question is about your walk-up song. I noticed one year you had the Dropkick Murphys, and I'm wondering what you're selecting for this coming year.
I don't know yet. Me and my wife were driving down here. There's a new Dropkick Murphy song that's out that I told her I might use, so maybe that one.
Well, Ryan, in that case, you know what I do for work sometimes. I have a gift for you, for your new home.
Aw.
Autograph Dropkick Murphys
Oh,
poster from the show here.
Oh. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's pretty cool.
How many different walk-up songs have you had?
Well, they rotate them kind of. I'm not totally sure how it works, so they just kind of rotate them in and out.
They don't have to clear them with you?
No, they just make sure there's no swears and they can put them on then. But yeah.
I'm wondering, do utility players' brains work differently than regular players?
Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad, but I think they do. As a utility player, you're always thinking, you know all the plays. First off, you know where you have to be on the field, and you better, because if there's a ball hit, you know if you're playing right field and there's a ball hit down the left field line where you're supposed to be backing up, and vice versa. So you know where all the players are going to be. So as a utility player, you're always kind of you're always kind of thinking along with the manager. If you're a guy who sits on the bench, you're always, thinking along and, seeing when you may get in and seeing kind of what's going to happen and just, kind of sitting there, thinking along. So, yeah, I think for sure.
When you're packing for a trip, how many gloves do you have to bring?
A lot, yeah. The visiting clubhouse guys don't like the utility guy because he's got about 5 or 6 gloves in his thing.
But that must be great training to be a coach, to be a manager, because you're not spitting seeds and putting bubble gum on some guy's hat. You've got to be involved in the game at every moment, right?
Now, sometimes we're doing that too. Yeah.
Have you met any of your favorite players from when you were little?
So, I have. I told you guys earlier that my favorite player was Derek Jeter, and I had a chance to work out with him in the off season at a place I used to work out at. David Ortiz, obviously, as a kid growing up here, I always really idolized him. And for those of you guys who don't know, in Fenway, the opposing team and the home team used the same weight room. So it was one of my first years there, and one of the older guys in my team was over there with me, and David was working out, and he introduced me to him, and he sat there and told me stories for about 45 minutes. He missed the whole batting practice, and he'll talk to anyone about hitting. I mean, he loves to talk hitting. He loved anyone, and he's told me things he sees in my swing, and just hitting stuff in general, which is pretty cool. From a kid who grew up in New England, to hear that from him is pretty cool.
How is your Spanish now?
Getting better.
All right, we're a little bit after 8 o'clock, so we're going to have to wrap this up. Ryan, I appreciate you very much coming out on behalf of the Press Herald. You're going to sign some autographs. If you have more questions, feel free in the audience to hang around and ask some questions, get an autograph signed. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And again, Ryan, thank you very much for doing this.